Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast, where we talk about the books we love and the topics that interest us. I'm Patrick Stemp, and with me are Michael Ronn and Jamie Maltman, and tonight we're going to be talking about the 2014 Goodreads Reader Choice Awards. How you guys doing?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Great.
Great.
I think I may have started the intro just a titch early there. I wasn't. I'm not sure if we went live halfway through the intro, but so if I did, welcome everybody to episode 25. It's good to have you here. So we'll start with our weeks in reading. Jamie, you want to go first? How's your reading going?
I've been going a little international this week. Read the first book I read was a book of short stories by an author from Athens, Greece, named Nicholas Rossis. I think I'll say it that way. That sounds reasonable enough. It's usually phonetic with Greek names, so. But it's basically it's called The Power of Six Plus One, but it's really The Power of Six by Nicholas Rossis, and it's 6 different science fiction short stories, and they're like short stories. It's not novellas or anything like that. It's legitimately short stories, but they're classic short stories. I think you guys would probably quite enjoy some of them. Like it's definitely like an interesting theme, interesting twists to them, but like developing the characters. And for someone who's like he went to school, I think in Scotland or something like that, but his for a non-native English speaker, I thought they were really well done and really enjoyed them a lot. So I'm actually interested to read some more of his stuff. So he's got a series about Perseus. So instead of Perseus, but it's like a pear, and it's like a pear-shaped spaceship, and there's some philosophical themes and stuff in that. And I'd actually picked that up back when I was reading that philosophy book a few months ago, because I'd seen that some of he goes into a little bit of some philosophical ideas addressed in those stories. So that's how I got into it in the first place, and yeah, really enjoyed it. So definitely will be checking out more of his work in the future. And then I've just started on one that, I'm almost halfway through. Something totally different. Came across through someone I met along the way on Goodreads. But it's a sports book, like a sports biography type book. But it's got a story to it. It's called the White Prisoner by Ognian Georgiev. Is a Bulgarian sports reporter, and it's about a Bulgarian weightlifter who ends up in a prison in Brazil on like drug trafficking charges, kind of thing. So it's kind of like a dual story of like the story of his life with what the heck's happening and how did he end up in Brazil in a jail and how's he going to get out of it. So, and he's an Olympic athlete, and so it's interesting seeing about a world that I knew nothing about in terms of Olympic weightlifting, but enjoying it so far. So 2 international authors and 2 totally different things than what I've been reading, and kind of nice for a change. So that's my week in reading.
Good. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I haven't been reading a whole lot per se this week, but I have been listening to a lot of audiobooks. So I'm still getting through The Beam Season 1. It's the biggest audiobook I've ever listened to in my life. I'm still maybe only 2/3 of the way through it, so hopefully I can finish it up over the holiday weekend. And I've been listening to the Freelancer Survival Guide by Christine Catherine Rush. And that's a pretty massive book, too. I think it's actually almost as long as the Beam books. It's pretty long, but she basically covers everything you need to know about running a freelance business. I really like Christine Catherine Rush a lot. A lot of stuff that she offers is really sage advice, and she's got a lot of experience. So I like to read anything that she's written. And I've also been reading some books on keyword research and search engine optimization. I'm going to be writing some nonfiction here pretty soon, and that's a world I know nothing about. So some of Steve Scott's books I picked up, and just a few other things, some resources over the internet, not worth really mentioning by name because they'll put you to sleep. But yeah, that's kind of my week in reading so far. How about you, Patrick?
Yeah, I went back to Graham Simsayan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Earlier this year, I read the first book in a series called The Rosie Project, and right now I'm reading the sequel, The Rosie Effect, and so it's about a professor of genetics who, they never come out. Actually, I think he's at this point kind of said he's not autistic, or he doesn't have Asperger's, but he's kind of on the spectrum somewhere. And it's from his point of view. And in the first book, he was trying to help this woman find her biological father. I won't go into what happens in the second book because it would ruin the first one if anyone was going to read that. But it's Australian author. The characters are Australian. In the second book, the story has moved to America, and it's a lot of fun. It's interesting. It's funny. So I'm enjoying that. I'm about halfway through that, and then I'm going to be starting. It's always nice when you pre-order something and then forget about it. So I woke up this morning to Myra Grant's newest book, the second book in the parasitology series. This one's called Symbiont, and I've been looking forward to that one for a while. So that'll be my when I get through the Rosie Effect, so I can start to pick that one next on my TBR list.
Awesome.
Yeah. So do we want to talk more books? The Goodreads Choice Awards.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what we're going to do here, because obviously there's a whole ton of different sections here for these awards, and the voting closed today. I think I had thought that this is a digital world, and once the votes were in, it would take maybe 5 minutes to compile and announce the winners, but they're going to take a week for some reason. But we're going to go through and we're going to skip some of the sections where there's we know without even looking that we won't have read any of the books in them. But we'll bang through the ones that we are interested in and kind of look at what was what was up in the running, and then talk about any of the particular ones that we've read. Anything else you guys have to add before we kind of dive in?
No, I just hope I have something to say because I typically don't read a lot of the stuff that's
and that's the question. That's raises kind of an interesting point. Like with any of these awards, like the Hugos, Nebulas, these ones here, it kind of makes me wonder, like, because we're all avid readers. I've read a ton this year, but I haven't read a heck of a lot on these lists. And what does that mean? Like, how do they choose these books? Are they the ones that, like in the first round, that just have the most ratings and reviews on Goodreads? Are they coming out of the New York Times bestseller list? I don't know. Do you guys know?
No idea.
I think
probably some formula. It's probably a mixture of all three of those things. The bestsellers, the ones with the most reviews, and then the ones with the best sales scan reports. The ones that are selling the most physical books. I'd imagine, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm guessing it'd be something like, because the Goodreads way of doing it'd probably be something along the lines of, with a minimum threshold of added, this, that were written in this period, with a minimum number of people that added them, or look at which books were added the most that were written this year that might fit into their category, and then sub-filtered a little bit by their overall rating or something like that. So that would be my guess, is something like that for the first round. But of course they had write-ins, and we actually saw a book that we've all read make it to, I think, the second level on the write-in with Write, Publish, Repeat that we've mentioned lots of times by Black Jurant. And
so we'll definitely dive into that category too, because it did get knocked out, and we'll have to look at what replaced it.
I guess my other comment, my other sort of macro comment on it is, because I tend not to read books the year they come out. Like, I'm not someone who goes and picks it up right away as soon as it's announced. There's a couple that I might do that from time to time if I happen to be up to date on a series and that sort of thing. But I was even looking back for, I had to go back, like, I think if I went back a year of all the ones that were the winners. So again, that's a smaller subset to look from. I might have only read one, but then go back 2 years and it might have been 2 or 3. In 3 years it might have been 3 or 4. So it was just interesting. I happened to do that today when I was looking at some of the past winners. So maybe in future, I think in future years I will read some of these books, but just haven't gotten them yet.
So if we start with fiction, is the first one on the list, the first section. Have you read any of these books? And we're not going to go through the entire list because it's like 10 books per section. So we'll just talk about what we're seeing here.
I think you have, right, Patrick?
I have, yes.
Yeah, I recognize a lot of the authors, and I've read some books by those authors, but I haven't read any of these.
So the one I've read out of here is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin, and it is definitely going to be probably one of my top 10 books of the year, which we'll talk about probably a little closer to mid-December. We'll have an episode about that, but it's about a bookstore owner living on a small island. I believe it was called Alice Island. Who he's kind of snarky, and he lost his wife 18 months before the story begins. And a baby is left in the bookstore with a note saying that whoever it is that left it wants this guy to raise the child. And it was a great story. I enjoyed it a lot. So it's on my. It was nice to see it on this list, and I haven't read any of the other books in this one. So should we go to?
Well, I was going to say the one that grabbed my eye that I will at some point read would be the Haruki Murakami book, because I have enjoyed his stuff that I've read before. I
can't read the whole title. Is it Colorless?
Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki.
And his years.
And his years of pilgrimage.
Okay. The wording on the book is in a big circle, so it's kind of.
I used to work for an audit firm, so I can read upside down. But I've liked his stuff that I've read so far, and actually, one Q84 was, I think, the fiction winner the year that it came out a few years ago on this Goodreads thing. So it's interesting how that name recognition works, and I guess there would be a lot of people that would read the book the very first year that it comes out, but like you're saying, I wonder to what extent people see this pop up in their email, click on it, and go, oh, well, I haven't read any of these, but I like Haruki Murakami, and so click, I'm going to vote for him. And so it's a little bit of a name recognition popularity contest as well. But
yeah.
So how about mystery and thriller?
No, I haven't read any of these, but none of these people are surprised, though. I mean, Stephen King, J.B. Robb, Tana French.
Janet Ivanovich, her 21st book, and it looks like, in her Stephanie Plum books.
Yeah. I've only read one Stephanie Plum book, and probably won't read the rest.
My girlfriend's been reading them, and I think she's probably read this one, and I think she got to the point with these that I did with the Lee Child, the Jack Reacher series, was like, they're good, but they're starting to get a little bit samey.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one. Jamie, you haven't read any of those either?
No.
Okay. So historical fiction, and you might hear us throughout the podcast just say pass when we get to certain sections, but I'm making an educated guess that Jamie might have something to say about historical fiction.
Sure. Well, I like Ken Follett when I've read some of his stuff in the past, but not in a long time. And I remember, I think I saw this one mentioned somewhere. This is Century Trilogy. Okay. Yeah. No, I thought it looked interesting. I think I read the jacket description of that one and thought it was something that I might look into in the future.
So you read the jacket description. So did you vote for it?
No. I only vote for things that I know I could, that I know something about. I'm definitely not the type to just go on name recognition. I think that Museum of Extraordinary Things I read something good about before, and that one, when I saw it reminded me again. And I'm thinking, this is for the authors, for the publishing companies that these books come from. It's a fantastic feature to pop up on any of these lists and to have prominent placement. This is like the end cap at the bookstore showing up and saying a bunch of people like this. So even if they don't win, I think within the Goodreads world, this is definitely a good thing for all of them. So I'm thinking about that one again. So there you go.
So how about you're gonna pass on fantasy?
No. I'm gonna pass on historical fiction.
I thought you were looking ahead. Okay. So historical fiction. I would have to pass on that too. What about fantasy?
Well,
I have not read any of the books. I haven't read any of these books. I was going to say, I don't know, I've heard a ton just very recently about Patrick Rothfuss.
Yeah.
Partially from me.
He's kind of having his
just
moment.
All over the place, yeah. So I kind of wonder. I mean, I've read. So Jim Butcher. I haven't read this book, Skin Game. Based on the cover, I'm guessing it's book 83 in the series. But I've read the first book or two in that a while ago.
You think book 83?
No, it's not. He does have a lot though. Yeah.
Holy cow! Okay.
I just can't see it. No. But there are quite a few. Yeah.
15. It says when you mouse over it. So.
Okay. And these again are mostly names that I think people would recognize: Kim Harrison, Brandon Sanderson, Patricia Briggs. I recognize Lev Grossman. I mean, I recognize most of the names, but I haven't read any of these particular books. Deborah Harkness. So the next.
Well, I was going to speak to that one. So Patrick Rothfuss, that was one where, because I think he is really cool. I really enjoy any interviews that he gives, and he's done tons of great talks out there, and has a really cool blog. And I don't know, I like him a lot. That's one where I was almost tempted to vote for that, saying, "Oh no, I'm going to like this for sure," kind of thing. But again, that's not really fair to the rest of them that I haven't read either. But that's one I absolutely will read when I get to it. But I've got to read book 2 because that's kind of, it's different characters within the same world as the Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear. It's an interesting one because he's got a disclaimer in the book of saying, if you are waiting for book 3 and you want this to be book 3, it's not book 3. Don't get mad when this isn't book 3. It's really different from book 3. I don't know if you're going to like this if all you're looking for is book 3. So it's kind of sort of controversial among his fans for that reason, but I don't know. I think, I'm guessing I'll think it's cool enough that I would probably really like it. And the other one I do want to get to as well is, like, I don't know if you've seen the physical books of those Brandon Sanderson ones in the Stormlight Archive, but this is the second book in that series. I haven't read the first one yet, but it's like 1,000 pages plus tons of extra stuff. Like, he's to the point now where he can get them to do whatever he wants, kind of thing. And I think the initial Kindle version of that was so big that it kind of broke the normal Kindle delivery system because it's got so many images and it's got so many appendices and it's got just so much stuff. Absolutely not something you are ever going to read, Patrick, but it's definitely on my list. I will be reading those in the future. And Jim Butcher, I've heard really great things about. Not just that one, but
I would go back to that series. I just it's read the first 2 and then moved on to something else. But I would go back to that. It's fun.
And he has another one his Codex Alera series that's like a Roman fantasy style one, which is absolutely up my alley. I just want to write more books before I read it, just so I don't feel like that's one where I'm like, oh, maybe there'd be some cross-contamination there.
So I'm guessing we're going to skip the next one, which is romance, 3 passes.
Yeah.
I could ask my wife, but she's not here.
And we'll move on to science fiction.
Let's see.
So
where Patrick does have something to say.
Yeah, so so John Scalzi's Lock-In, we had it from the library, and I just didn't get to it. Had too many other things, so it's I love Scalzi. It's definitely one that I will read. Probably early 2015. I'll get to that one. And I have read Hugh Howey's Sand, which I did enjoy, but I did not enjoy it nearly as much as some of his other stuff, like Wool, iZombie, Halfway Home, and things like that. So it was good. I didn't quite get into it as much as some of his other stuff. The Martian by Andy Weir. That's the one I voted for in this category, and I'm going to have to go back and look through my year when we're getting ready to talk about kind of top 10 or however many we pick books of the year. I'm thinking that The Martian is probably going to end up at the top of my list as the my favorite book that I read this year.
And that's a debut one too, isn't it? Or it was in the So that's way to go, Andy Weir.
It's a
awesome.
Fantastic book. Loved every minute of it. Just the main character was just a lot of fun to follow through. It's done. The story is told mostly through sort of like blog entries. They're not blogs, but like diary entries of his time marooned on Mars, hoping to be rescued. And they're turning it into a movie with, I want to say, Matt Damon as the lead. And
well, then Andy Weir.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I will definitely I'll read anything he puts out. Because of this book, will kind of probably shoot towards the top of my TBR list because it was such a great read. The other ones in this, so I have not read.
Have you read the first one of that series, the Pratchett and Baxter series? Because that's the third one, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm aware of the series, Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. I have not. I've seen mixed reviews on that and have not picked up the series.
Yeah, it was something that I'd seen at the library, I think, and I was going to get, I probably will get to it just because, I like Terry Pratchett and I really enjoyed the Stephen Baxter Doctor Who book that he did. So I thought, hey, I would give it a chance with those two names. So
yeah,
I'm sure lots of others did, and then they voted for it.
So that's
the other one. The other one I was going to say too is I haven't read it, but I've seen it in some of the book clubs that I'm ostensibly a part of, but I don't tend to read the brand new books. But it's interesting to see what they're popping up. But Jeff Vandermeer is the one who wrote the Wonder Book that I've talked about a few times. That's the really cool writing book. He was the one that compiled that. So, that just the fact that he did that, and I thought that was a really cool book, made me, curious about that. So I am adding a bunch of these books from the fantasy and sci-fi ones to my, my to be read list, which is obviously growing way too fast anyway. But you figure this would be a good place to find them because at least a lot of people did like them.
So horror, I'm gonna say we should at least look at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say pass. I don't recognize
so looking at this list, what jumps out for me? I mean, James Rollins, Dean Koontz, Anne Rice, Prince Lestat. That I loved back when she was originally, releasing them. The Vampire Chronicles. I read.
Number 11. Holy cow!
What's that?
That's number 11 in the series. I'm like, I read 3, 4, 5. I don't know, a number of them. But like, wow, she just kept going. Like,
I didn't know that. I mean, so I got away from that series after Queen of the Damned, I guess. And I've liked some of her other, like, I really liked her book, The Mummy. That was a book that when I was done reading it, that's an old one too, but that was a series that I really hoped that she would continue with because the first one was, I enjoyed it a great deal. And then we've got Scott Sigler's Pandemic on here, and that would probably be my pick out of this. And that's the only one I've read, but I love Scott Sigler, and that was book 3 in a series, and it was kind of a good wrap up to a trilogy. He's gross. Scott Sigler, it's lots of gore and blood and action. It's good stuff. That's it for me for horror. Humor, yay or nay?
I was just going to make an interesting comment that it's interesting how that category seems to be quite a mix of stuff. Like it was, some look like, you've got Neil Patrick Harris, the Choose Your Own autobiography, or you've got.
Oh, or did you move to humor?
Yeah, humor. Sorry, on humor.
It was just, I thought you were.
No. An interesting thing on humor. Not that I've read any of the books, but just that it's a mix of what looks like fiction and some autobiographical funny stuff too. Right?
Just to go back to the horror for 1 second, I was just going to say it's interesting in looking through this list to see Stephen King in mystery and thriller and not horror. He's really kind of moved away. That was just something I noticed. So humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, out of all these, the one I want to read is the Neil Patrick Harris book.
Me too.
Oh yeah.
Considering I read interactive fiction and it's such an interesting idea, I have that sneaking suspicion though that it's kind of going to be a flop. But
I don't know. I flipped through it in the bookstore a little bit, and the little video he did. I don't know if you've seen it, to the trailer video where he kind of walks you through what he's done.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I love Neil Patrick Harris. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I love him too.
And I definitely want to give that one a try. I probably would want to read that in a hardback, not on an ebook. It's just so much easier to kind of flip around and just play with the format without maybe following it through all the way. But yeah, I haven't read any of these, but I love Neil Patrick Harris, so I guess I hope he wins.
Yeah, I definitely want to check out that The Empire Striketh Back with. Like I didn't know that series existed, and I'm seeing like that's William Shakespeare's Star Wars #5. So, wow. Okay, I'm gonna check that out with my kids at some point.
That seems like kind of along the same sort of vein, maybe of like Pride and Prejudice and zombies, or Sherlock Holmes with zombies, or you see those everywhere now.
I was just seeing the name of that other one. People I Want to Punch in the Throat. Competitive Crafters, Drop-Off Despots, and Other Suburban Scourges by Jen Mann.
Alrighty.
Sounds almost like a pre-reformed James Altucher title or something, right? Like, before he got happiness.
Yeah, if James goes bad, I don't know.
Yeah.
If he turns to the dark side.
Yeah.
Instead of choose yourself, punch people in the throat.
Punch people in the throat.
Nonfiction. Do we want to look at nonfiction?
Sure.
Couldn't hurt.
I can comment on Michio Kaku, The Future of the Mind. I didn't read that one, but I did read the Physics of the Future, which probably, kind of like you, Patrick, I think that probably would be one of my top books of the year that I've read, least he published it last year. I think he published it late last year, so kind of 2014, but not quite. But
yeah, I think the Goodreads awards are November to November.
Yeah, I think he might have just missed it. So, but yeah, a lot of people are raving about this one. So he did talk a lot about the future of the mind and the future of physics, though. So I wonder how much overlap there is, because there's a whole section devoted to nanotechnology and all the stuff, medicine and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, that future of the mind might end up on my TBR list. It kind of depends, and this is reminding me to make sure that I actually added Physics of the Future, because you've mentioned it a few times, and it definitely sounds like it'd be something that's right up my alley. I want to read that one.
Mm-hmm.
Memoir and autobiography. Couldn't hurt to look at.
I think I saw something interesting in there.
Nope.
Or maybe not. Oh yes, it was. It was the Princess Bride one, the Inconceivable Tales from the Making of the Princess Bride. I'm like, that sounds really interesting.
I would read that for sure. Carrie Elways, yeah, I would probably read that.
Yeah, because even I was watching a little bit of like when I was showing it to my kids, and they had some of the special features, and there was just like the little making of featurette from that time was awesome. Like they were hilarious, the whole gang with Rob Reiner and Carrie Elways and everybody. Like.
Have you read The Princess Bride, either of you? I can't.
No, that's one I absolutely have to.
Yeah. Get it on. Yeah, get it on your list. The book is fantastic. I love it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Let me see here. History and biography.
Pass.
I would pass too, but Jamie might.
Well, I'll take a look. I read some biographies, and actually no, there was
Joss Whedon. I'd read that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That one was cool. Actually, I remember seeing this one as well. The Woman Who Would Be King, which is Hatshepsut's rise to power in ancient Egypt. I'd seen that in I can't remember, somewhere recently, some email promotion or something like that, and I was like, wow, that's because I like ancient Egypt stuff, and that sounds pretty cool as well. So I thought there are a couple there. Hey, there's a Jordan one there. There's a Ted Williams there. I don't mind sports biography stuff every once in a while too. So
yeah, I'd read the Jordan one for sure.
Let's see. Business books is next.
I recognize these.
Yeah, so for me, the only book that I've actually read is Show Your Work, Austin Kleon.
Yeah.
The one that jumps out at me that I would like to read is Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. He has a couple other earlier books I think that I would read first. I can't remember what they're called, but he's someone who does he's someone who does the TED Talks quite a bit. Or at least I've watched them a bunch. I really enjoy watching his TED Talks, and so I'd like to read some of his nonfiction.
Yeah, I agree. Start with Why. That's the TED Talk I saw. I love that TED Talk. That's fantastic.
The Golden Circle. It's great. And Show Your Work, Austin Kleon here. This is I really like his books, and this one's about. What's the other one that came out?
Steal Like an Artist.
Steal Like an Artist. I really enjoyed that one. I think I liked that one a little bit more.
Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, no, his stuff sounded cool. I remember hearing him interviewed a couple of times, and just looking through it. He's just done such neat things with his blog of really the way he's used that to show his work, right? Like he's eating his own cooking, eating his own cooking. Yes, there you go. The one that I keep meaning to get to. I really enjoy the Freakonomics guys, and I've been reading their blog and listening to their podcast for years. But I don't think I ever got around to reading Super Freakonomics, and I haven't read this Think Like a Freak. But I did listen to a bunch of the stuff when they were developing that. That one was more about using the type of analysis, the type of attitude that they bring to stuff, of just sort of challenging things and running experiments and doing these different things like that to just challenge sort of collective wisdom on different topics using economic type analysis or like the experiments and stuff. So it was really neat, some of the stuff that they were investigating with that, and they're always talking about cool stuff. And it's I don't know, if you've never read any of their stuff, the style is really really accessible and fun when they're going through those.
And this is the category, of course, where Write, Publish, Repeat was a write-in entry, and made it into the first round via a write-in from their fans, and made it to the second round, and unfortunately did not make it to the final. So if it had made it to the final round, I don't know if you guys voted in this category. I did for Austin Kleon. if Write, Publish, Repeat had made it to the finals, would you have voted for it or something else?
I probably would have voted for it, just based on. I mean, I like Show Your Work, but seeing as I haven't read the other book here, I probably would have written Write, Publish, Repeat in.
Yeah, I think if Write, Publish, Repeat was on here, sorry, it's not probably, I would have clicked on it for sure, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other books I think that I would have voted on. And this one, Business for Authors by Joanne Pin.
Yep.
Had
they only been in here, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, that's and that might be part of it, is because those books are sort of more. They have kind of not as much of a broad audience, yeah,
right.
as something like Leaders Eat Last, which might have more of a broad audience for leaders. Or people who are interested in Google or Pixar, I'm guessing, based on the cover of Creativity Inc.
Yeah, those are both books that I do. They're on my TBR list. Is Creativity Inc. and Google. Google fascinates me to no end. I'd love to see what's in that book.
How Google works.
Yeah.
When it does, yeah.
Yeah.
So, food and cookbooks, I would pass.
Let's see.
I'm not up to date on graphic novels and comics, so I wouldn't have any of those that.
No, I don't recognize any.
I've been reading stuff. I recognize stuff, but I never read any of it.
I was waiting for one section to load. Now I'm going back to graphic novels and comics. Give me 1 second here. See if anything jumps out at me. What do we have here? Avatar, Batman, Saga, Serenity. Haven't read it, but I would put it on my list. I haven't actually read any of the Serenity comics, but I'd like to. I
read the first issue of the Batman series. Okay. This sounds like maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It looks familiar because I can't tell if this is volume 4. Yeah, I think I read the first. Yeah, 0 year. Interesting stuff. I think this is an interesting spin on the Batman series because Alfred is not his butler. He's like a detective, like a cop detective, and so he kind of teaches Bruce everything he knows. So it's kind of a different take. I guess there's been other spins on Alfred throughout the series, but this one kind of jumped out at me, and I loved it. I probably want to continue reading it. So
okay.
The art was fantastic too.
So how about poetry? Pass.
Michael, anything as our resident poetry fan?
Are there any poems that make grown Michaels cry?
I wouldn't say they make me cry, but I have read. I did read Motherland, Fatherland, Homosexuals by Patricia Lockwood. She's kind of like I think they call her the poet laureate of Twitter, which is kind of interesting because she's one of the few poets that has really embraced the digital age. Poetry's still kind of in the Stone Age right now. There's no major poet publishing ebooks, and she's kind of ahead of the curve on that, and she's got a pretty active Twitter presence. That being said, I really didn't care too much for the poems. They're very sexual, I think, and almost to the point that they're kind of gratuitous. It's kind of like, I mean this in the best possible way, but it's kind of like, you're adding sex into the poems to make people pay attention, But yeah, that's my take on it. That's the only one on this list that I've read.
So you haven't read poems that make grown men cry. I can't read the rest of the title. 100
Men on the words that move them.
Okay. All the titles are grayed out, unless there happens to be one you voted for, so it makes it hard to read some of these. Debut Goodreads author.
Let's see.
And
I was wondering whether all of those show up in other topics or some of them don't, I guess, because some of those look new, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing some of these for the first time, but not The Martian. There's my Andy Weir, and I voted for him in here. This is the only book that I've read.
Yeah, pass.
In this section. Young adult. Take a look at what's in there.
No, I don't recognize any of this.
That was not the YA science fiction fantasy that you might have read some of. This was definitely YA looks more
literary.
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily literary. Yeah. No, it's definitely young adult. I'm just saying some of that more, I don't know. teenage girl show fans that
These covers are kind of surprising. They don't look young at all. I mean, they kind of, I don't know. You see a lot of like young girls on the cover, like it makes me, I don't know. I guess YA kind of is just, it's a shapeshifter. You never know what.
Oh, here we go. It's like it's a different section: young adult fantasy and science fiction. That's that's what I was looking for. Here we go.
That's what I think.
And
that's your territory now.
And I haven't read any of these. I was going to read 4, but no, that's not going to happen.
No, I haven't. I've read part of Crest. I started. It's book number 3 though. I started the first book in that series, and that was pretty interesting. I enjoyed it. So it's on my TBR list. I guess I have to get around to reading it. I thought the writing was excellent, though. That's one thing that kind of really surprised me. The writing was really, really, really good. It kind of reminded me of like the first. Have you guys seen Wall-E?
Oh yeah.
Kind of reminded me of that a little bit, just like the feel. It's like there's a android, and she's kind of falling in love, and she's got to save the world too. So.
No, I wouldn't get that from the cover at all.
No, the main character's an android, so it's definitely different. And it's based in space, so
I'm sorry, but that's a terrible cover. If that's
now that is book 3, so
it is book 3.
Yeah.
It's book 3. The first book, it's like a heel, and you can kind of like it's like transparent. You can see inside it that there's like robotic parts. I'm actually quite fond of these covers, to be honest with you. I like them.
But I would never.
If
you're talking about
it is an attractive cover.
Robots in outer space. I mean,
I
would completely pass this over just based on the cover and not even think that it might be something that would interest me. But what you're telling me sounds interesting.
The one cover that stuck out to me in a funny way, not in a funny way here, but that Ignite Me one, looks like if you took the textbook of some of the like Derek Murphy and various different people out there saying this is all the elements that make up a good grip cover that'll grab you in terms of the color combinations and the font treatment and the balance and the way that the image is done well. Like it's like a textbook of all those aspects of making a good cover for like self-publishing type stuff. But again, I think it's a traditional one. But it's funny. Like I just that one that's what struck me on that one. I know actually we'll call back to Monica Lionel from the show. She was one talking about that City of Heavenly Fire, that Cassandra Clare one. A couple of weeks ago there. Or was that last week?
Yeah. I'm just writing down Crest because I have to go back and look at the rest of the series. Find out why this cover's so terrible. So I want to see the other ones. I want to look at the other look at book 1 and check out the cover and also the write-up because it sounds like it might be interesting.
All right.
Middle grade and children's. I'm going to take a look, but probably.
That's where I would probably put money on the Percy Jackson one winning there.
Yeah, probably.
Because I think he basically wins that every year. My kids aren't there yet, but I know that'll probably be popular.
Is that the Iron Trial? No. Which?
The Blood of Olympus, Rick Riordan.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah. I haven't read any of these, but there was one I was kind of disappointed that didn't make this, and I don't know if it was in the earlier rounds or not. But have you guys heard of Kate DiCamillo?
I don't think so.
She wrote Because of Winn-Dixie. I think that's her most famous book. But she released this book earlier this year called Flora and Ulysses, and it's about this girl, this little girl who, she's a daydreamer, and she finds this squirrel and brings it into her home, and she's trying to hide it from her mom, and it's got a lot of like really cool illustrations in it, and I would probably say it's like middle grade, but the writing was so good, and the illustrations and the comics were hilarious, and it was just a really fun story. It was probably the most fun I've had all year. That'd probably be another one that would be in my top, and I don't even remember why I picked it up. I think I actually found it because I think it came out in April or May, and it was like the #1 Goodreads book for that month. So I was just kind of surprised it didn't get this far, but it was good stuff.
And then the last category is picture books,
Picture books.
I'm going to pass.
Pass.
It's funny. I actually have read two of those to my kids. My Pigeon Needs a Bath and Haiku. Haiku was actually kind of neat. Like it was, it had some, it was, like the name punning on poetic type stuff. I thought it was cute from that perspective. The thing I want to say to this category in general is, okay, so who's voting for these? Like, parents are going, oh, is it parents saying, well, this is cool, or is it librarians saying, oh, yes, this is a particular one that I liked, or, I just think it's so weird whenever they have these kids voting things. I've always had this issue with. Now, I've talked to some of my friends about this because we have small kids and we read a lot of books to them. The ones that have those, like, the Caldecott medal or these different ones like that, where it's got like that foil medal that's from that award that they won, most of those kids' books are really boring. And we think that, like, it's absolutely, kids are far away from voting on that. So I just think, I don't know. I guess you have to have this just to give some recognition and to show off some books for people in the category. But I just think it's kind of silly.
One of these I might. There's one actually in here that I would. So it caught my eye because it's called The Book with No Pictures.
Yeah.
It's in the picture books category, and it's written by B.J. Novak. I'm like, where the heck do I know that name? Is he an author? And so he's from The Office, and actually he was one of the writers. So I would check that one out just because it's probably pretty funny.
Yeah, I think they did a special, I guess as part of his book publication. He was on Good Morning America, and they showed some clips of him reading that book to a few kids, and it's pretty funny.
So have you, Michael, are you going to buy your kid? I shouldn't say the whole title on the show, and I won't, but you'll know. It's Go the Blank to Sleep.
Oh, I'll probably check it out at some point.
The Morgan Freeman version?
Yeah. Yeah, I keep asking that. It's one I want to read, but my daughter, she's still too young, I think, at this point. Maybe when she hits a year.
Actually, it wasn't Morgan Freeman they've got narrating it. Samuel L. Jackson, isn't it? I think it's Samuel L. Jackson who narrated it.
Is it? I don't remember who. I know that was a big deal when they did it, though.
Yeah. That's a couple years old now, I think.
Yeah, at least.
But well worth it when they won't go to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
So that is all of the categories. So I think I don't know that we answered this necessarily, but if you've only read one book out of 10 in a category, do you vote for the one book you read, or do you feel like you should have you don't have the right to vote unless you've read more than one book or all of them, or what do you guys do? What do you think people do?
If I loved it, like if I thought this was easily, like this is absolutely one of my favorite books of the year, I would vote for it. Unless there were other books there by authors that I really like that I think might be the right one, like that I might like even better. That's the one case where I might hold off, or maybe try and read that sooner. But again, since a lot of these books are too long to read quickly like that. But that would sort of be my take. Is I have to really like it. Well, like even with some of the business books, like I was like, I like Write, Publish, Repeat, but I've liked some of these books by these other guys too. But then I know those guys a little bit more, and I'd want to get that if I could. So that's kind of a funny one too there. Like if you have, like, and even Hugh Howey, like I was like, I've met Hugh Howey and really enjoyed meeting him. So I would be inclined to maybe give him a vote there too. But again, I haven't read those, so I didn't do that. I didn't ballot stuff for anyone that I didn't read. But that, I guess, it's sort of that same thing of where the other angle of that too is the people voting for a book, or not voting for a book, rating a book before it's come out. Like, it's a similar phenomenon to that too, right? Like I know Patrick Rothfuss, his third book has like 500 5-star votes already, 5-star ratings, and it comes out next year, the year after, I don't know, later. I don't know. Did you guys have any different thoughts on that?
I try not to vote unless I've actually read one of the books there. I mean, you think about it, if you were an author and had your book being shortlisted for an award like that, and you lost because some idiots in this guy's caravan decided to just vote him up. That's not cool. That's not cool. That's just how I roll, though. But then again, I don't really follow many of these awards. I'm surprised I was able to talk about as many books as I was tonight. So.
Yeah, and there's no way. I shouldn't say no way. I'm sure there are people who you would have to, I think, really limit yourself to a category as a reader throughout the year. Like, read nothing but science fiction, and maybe, probably not, but maybe you might have read all 10 books that pop up in
Well,
in an
actually,
award like that.
to that point, like, because I am part of a few Goodreads book clubs that I was there more just to see what they're reading and a little bit what they're talking about, and see the conversations actually in some of the groups are really interesting. Not necessarily about the books themselves. And they read a mix of classics and new books and books from a few years ago and what have you. And for a few, like, I think if someone was a member of several of those groups and reading a book a week or a book every couple of weeks, they absolutely would have read probably most of those ones, because I know a lot of those pictures are showing up that I'd seen through the year. And it was kind of neat seeing them there, because at the time I saw, okay, Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation is there. I don't know anything about this. I wasn't looking for a book at the time, so I didn't bother to investigate it. But when I saw it again later, I'm like, oh wow, I guess a lot of people really like that one that was part of the book club from April or what have you. So I think you'd be surprised. Like, there's a lot of book club type environments where they are reading new books, right? So, and a lot of those people are utilizing Goodreads, so there might be more good votes in there than maybe you're thinking, that, like, your sort of qualified votes in terms of actually being able to compare among them, than any of us might actually believe, because we're just not a part of that so much.
Yeah, what he said. We're coming up on getting close to probably at least 45 minutes, if not an hour. So do we want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. You can send us an email at tbrpodcast@gmail.com if you have a question for us, or if you'd like to suggest a topic for the podcast. If you're an avid reader and you think you might like to actually join us for an episode to talk about books, let us know, and maybe we can set something up. We record live Tuesdays at 9 Eastern. You can also subscribe on YouTube or iTunes, and if you'd like to leave us a review or a rating, that would be fantastic. And be sure to visit our Goodreads page. So next week, we're going to be talking about choosing which book in your huge TBR list to read next. And after a night like tonight, somebody got something going on there. Sorry, there was some sound there. And next week we're going to have a guest, Amy Schubert, who will be joining us to talk about our TBR lists. And then we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for watching.
Happy reading.